Speaking of injuries in AEW, this was said by Sean Ross Sapp about stars being paid whenever they are out and unable to wrestle. It was also added that AEW President Tony Khan has been adamant that the company will pay injured talent, which might have been months after Santana's contract expired. AEW paid for over a half year Santana could have been out of a contract. On the AEW Unrestricted podcast, Kip Sabian discussed his injury and Penelope Ford's recent miscarriage and how they've bounced back. I was in limbo at this point during his injury, and then me and Penelope Ford got pregnant. It was like a light in this situation, but we were very nervous about it. I will go into details about this situation. We finally go in to talk to Tony. No one knows. The only person that knows is Doc. There has to be a reason that she can't wrestle right now. You just can't not wrestle. We tell Doc, okay, cool. We finally go in to talk to Tony, and we were so nervous because you're going to your boss to say hi. She's not going to be able to wrestle for a year or so, maybe longer now. How do you feel about that? So we went in and we're like, hi Tony, we got some news to tell you. And the second we told him, if you've seen Tony Khan on an AEW stage when a talent is debuted and they come up the ramp and he is so excited and so happy and he just jumps and hugs them. That is the moment that we had in Tony's office with Tony. He had papers in his hand for the show. He threw the papers and just came over and was so excited. He was like, whatever you need, however long you need, I support you. And we were like, weight lifted. Now we can get excited. And then unfortunately for us, about 10 weeks or so, we lost the baby, which for me was very hard for two reasons. One, we got really excited about the fact that we can have a baby because we've always wanted children. We just didn't know with wrestling how we would make that fit. But we'd worked out the time frame and the fact that we have such a supportive family that we would still be able to work our schedule. 2 days a week, we're gone. We come back, family life. So we were really getting into it. Then it was actually when we were traveling to TV one day, we got in the car and then it happened. I had to call Bryce straight away from travel. I said, dude, we can't make it in this week. I'll tell you later. It's a personal emergency. He's like, okay, cool. I'll let everyone know. When she got pregnant, the hormones that changed made the fibroid grow. By the time that we had a miscarriage, it was the size of a cantaloupe. She had this huge growth. It was sticking out. It looked like a bump. We thought we were having twins for a long time because of that, because it was that big. So she'd have to go through the surgery of having that removed. Not only have you lost this life, but now you have to go through surgery and rehab and recovery as if you had a C-section. So for her, that was really hard. It's got to the point now that we look at the silver lining, which is, in my mind, this fibroid has always been there and they can cause complications when they get to that size. So I look at it as this baby sacrificed itself to make us aware of this fibroid so the fibroid could be removed. So when we get pregnant again in the future, the complications are gone. That's how we've tried to look at it. I can't speak on her behalf, but from my perspective of everything, that definitely gives me hope. With Matt Riddle previously in rehab and supposedly getting sober, a photo of him was posted as he appears to be having a drink. An ex of Riddle's would then write on Twitter, "Sober living. Bro, come on, fresh out of rehab, hanging with same people I've seen, even partied with being with you." With it previously noted that Logan Paul's WWE contract was expiring soon, it seems the star will be sticking around in the company, as Logan posted on Twitter that his deal was renewed. Paul also said this on a recent episode of his podcast about the challenges of wrestling. When I'm picking an opponent and I'm at the bottom of this mountain trying to build what I want to be an amazing and entertaining match, these mountains are getting higher and higher. It's terrifying and incredibly complicated. I don't know how I'm going to keep doing this and upping the bar every time. On No Mercy with Stephen A. Smith, Becky Lynch reflected on her pro wrestling career and what could be in her future. It ain't gonna last forever, and so you gotta enjoy it, but sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard because your body aches. There is gonna be a day when I'm not going to be able to go out in front of 80,000 people screaming my name in at WrestleMania, and so you have to start thinking, what is that retirement plan? I did my degree in acting, and that's something that I always want to do. I think performing in general just lights a fire in me. When asked about AEW stars reaching out to him about making the jump to WWE, Cody Rhodes told BT Sport no one has reached out flat out and said, "How can I get there? What do I need to do?" Most of it's been, "Hey, this is great, but can you still watch my promo from Dark and tell me if it was any good?" Most of it's that stuff. I can help with that. Touching on a return timetable for AJ Styles, Steve Carrier reported, "We have asked about AJ Styles' return to WWE TV after suffering an ankle injury back in December. Unfortunately, not much was said. As we were told, no word yet on AJ Styles. This would indicate that he's not being discussed at this time." For an interview with WrestleZone, former WWE star Eva Marie confirmed that she has been speaking to the company about a comeback, as she said this when asked if she had an interest in returning. Of course, that door is always open. I mean, we're in constant talks. When I had originally left, I was filming my first lead action movie, so that door is definitely one of those things that is always open, and I'm definitely down to always cause some trouble and stir up some things, that's for sure. With a return to WWE taking place recently, Sean Ross Sapp noted that we're told that Weston Blake, the former Wesley Blake, is involved in coaching and training wrestlers now. He guest coached at the WWE Performance Center last year. Speaking of returns to WWE, another formerly let go star has made his way back to the company, with Fightful revealing Eric Young was recruited back in a wrestling capacity in 2022 by Triple H's new regime, just a few months after taking over. We're told that by October, Impact Wrestling was made aware that Eric Young would be finishing up with the company. Young has been under WWE contract since as far back as November 1st, but hasn't appeared at all on screen, and we have yet to hear of him being backstage at all. Touching on her back injury, AEW star Britt Baker noted on casual conversations with the Wrestling Classic, "No, I'm not on the shelf, not to the point where I can't wrestle or anything, but we're definitely being proactive with the doctor. I'm getting an MRI, so I have to get a shot to be able to wrestle. We're getting a new MRI this week just to make sure everything's okay, because our medical team, they never will let you work if it's not safe. I have to say that first and foremost, but I'm very stubborn and I want to wrestle as much as possible. If I'm not going to wrestle, I'm going to be at work." Speaking about renewing his deal with WWE, Logan Paul said this during his talk with ESPN. "I wouldn't have signed this contract if I didn't think that I was capable of getting a WWE belt. I think it'd be the coolest thing ever. I'd love to have it on my resume, and I'd love to show every kid around the world who watches WWE that you can achieve anything." With rumors regarding Logan Paul's pay in WWE, Ringside News noted that we saw a report floating around about Logan Paul's WWE paycheck, and we asked about it. We were told, "Don't know what Logan Paul makes, but I bet he's not even in top 5 in WWE right now, and I don't think he's anywhere near 15 million. According to WRKD Wrestling, a match could be in the works for SummerSlam, as it was written that, while Gunther has publicly stated during interviews that he'd like a match with Brock Lesnar, the idea has been floated backstage to potentially have them face off sometime this summer. Despite this report, Ringside News wrote that WWE has a lot of plans in the pipeline, especially for Brock Lesnar. A rumor is going around about his future opponent, but I've been able to confirm that Lesnar is not slated to face Gunther this summer. With rumors of a CM Punk return to AEW on the horizon, Dax Harwood said this on his FTR podcast about having another match with him. I will say, this is the reason I'm fantasy booking that CM Punk and FTR versus The Elite is because outside of Roman Reigns, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, outside of Roman Reigns, and maybe this is not including like Brock Lesnar or Logan Paul or whatever, but outside of Roman Reigns and maybe Cody Rhodes, the biggest name in professional wrestling right now is CM Punk, right? Definitely the biggest name in AEW. So if we want to take AEW to the next level, if we're here to work for AEW, if we're here to make professional wrestling better because of AEW, the way you do that is you take the biggest star that you have, and one of the biggest stars in the world, and you put them on the card, and you make money with them. Also, on top of saying that, I talk to Punk almost every day, and Punk misses wrestling. That's your headline, Punk misses wrestling, and Punk wants to come back. He wants to give back to the fans. He wants to get back to wrestling, so I'll leave it at that. Speaking of retirement, Dolph Ziggler revealed the way he wants to hang up his boots telling Comedy Store Wrestling. I always kind of cop out on this and go, I want Miz, John Morrison, Zack Ryder, and myself to either have everybody running down. It's like Miz and myself, and then they're running in and picking sides or something, or we all just have this four-way match, and not Attitude Era guys, where we all hug each other afterwards, but we just do it, and we're out there like, we got it. We did this, we built it with a story, and I got to be here with my friends, who I've been friends with because of the business. They always wanted to do more, and I just was drawn to them because Ryder was doing the YouTube show that we weren't doing, and it was like, this guy's trying everything. Miz was going above and beyond, doing some other show so we can get a push, and we were just all drawn to each other doing these extra things, and it's like, these are the people who want to be on top and are doing the extra work. So that would be cool, and I would like my brother to retire me. During an interview on Impulsive, Rey Mysterio recalled his battles with addiction, as he noted, "So during my big run in WWE and after so many surgeries, I got hooked on painkillers for a very long time. My wife caught me one time. We were on vacation. She saw that I was just out of it completely, so she gave me an ultimatum. She goes, so when we get back home, you can either take your pills or you can take your family. You choose." That really opened me up and it made me a stronger person because I remember getting back home to San Diego. I flew to TV and the next day I spoke to Vince. I told him, boss, I need to check myself in. I'm going to need some time off. He was cool with it. He was like, it takes a man to man up to what you're doing. That was a big life changer for me and a different perspective of life and the appreciation of family and the support of my wife. It's crazy. She's been there from day one. She went to my first match. It was bad, and to be able to recognize it and check yourself in and put everything aside and move on with your life to a positive note, it was crazy. I really enjoyed that phase of my life because I learned so much of what not to do. I was there for 30 days. I haven't told that story before. Another thing that was really big to me was that my kids were young. Dominic was maybe 10 years old, 12. My daughter was very young. I was really bad prior, but once I eliminated all that toxic mindset, clean. After I went to rehab, probably 3 years later, I ended up getting another surgery, and it was probably the worst one of all. I remember I was in mad pain. I tore my ACL. I sprained my MCL. They said pretty much my knee was dangling by one thread, so it was pretty bad. I remember I wrestled in San Diego that night, and we were the main event. I was wrestling Alberto Del Rio. In the first 2 minutes of the match, I felt that snap. I was like, oh, I'm effed up. Like, no, let's go home. That's it. I was like, no, let's keep going. We kept rolling, but then afterwards, I probably damaged it more in the 10 to 12 minutes that I stayed in the ring. I had the surgery. I came home and the doctor gave me painkillers. I took one, and throughout the night, because they had to drill 2 holes in my knee, I remember it was the worst pain I've ever felt from these surgeries that I've had in the past. I would tell my wife, no, I'm not going to take anything. I'm not going to take anything. And I controlled my pain as much as I could until she said, I can't stand watching like that. So it was pretty bad. I remember I was bawling out with this. She actually had them, so she controlled everything, but I didn't want to take them. When it comes to the draft in WWE, this was said by Steve Carrier of Ringside News. We reached out to confirm Vince McMahon's involvement in upcoming WWE draft. We were told that Vince has not offered any opinion on the draft. Speaking about rumors of a return to AEW for CM Punk, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful noted that Punk has laid out numerous scenarios in which he'd return. Among these includes a willingness to work with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. However, we've heard that at least as of a few months ago, Omega and Bucks didn't seem keen on doing that for obvious reasons. We're not sure if that's changed as AEW has progressed on landing new deals with them. Punk has also expressed his willingness to return to work for All Elite Wrestling and keep completely separate from the Elite along the way. There were some talent that were of the belief that the rumored upcoming Saturday AEW show could be used to help facilitate that with some separation to the AEW roster, but that's not something higher-ups in AEW have confirmed to us. We're told Punk has been open to working elsewhere, though we're not sure if that means within the auspices of AEW such as Ring of Honor or the likes of WWE and NJPW. Talking about a potential AEW comeback for Punk, Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio, the big thing was the promo on Adam Page, which was totally unprofessional. There's no defending it, but because he was never punished, which is one of the problems with this, is because he was never punished for it, it created a lot of heat that got worse and worse and worse. If he had been told, if he had done that promo and Tony Khan would have said, dude, you're going against the script, going to sit out for a couple of weeks, I think that at that point, either he would have pouted and quit and gone home, or he would have not pouted and quit and gone home, and maybe this thing would have been alleviated. I don't know which would have happened, but it didn't happen that way, so it got worse and worse and worse. And so now we're at this situation where it's like, obviously he's probably going to be back, and if they want to work and he's going to be back, there's ways to do it, but going in there and trying to make the other people look unprofessional is probably the worst way to do it, unless you're trying to just kind of pressure them out of the company. If that's the idea, then again, we'll have to wait and see how it all turns out. This is clearly not good faith, because it was good faith, we wouldn't hear anything about it. They would settle it, and we would see an angle out of nowhere that would shock everyone, or at least even, or maybe we would talk about it or whatever and know the angle was coming, and if that happens, that's fine. But as long as they're talking about it, it tells me that number one, they have no deal to do it, and number two, by doing it publicly, they're not really looking at doing it. They're looking at playing a public relations game over it. For an interview with House of Wrestling, Conan spoke about booking El Hijo del Vikingo, where he noted that Kenny Omega has had talks with WWE. Originally, we were going to bring in Omega, but he was still negotiating with AEW, and he wasn't sure if he was going to stay or not, so we couldn't commit, and he didn't want to come here until he signed. So that was out of the window, boom. And then after that, we asked for a couple people from AEW, and they weren't available. Then we got another guy who was hurt, and basically what we got was Swerve, which I don't have a problem with because he may not have the name value as other people, but he's an incredible wrestler. I worked with him in Lucha Underground, and Ricochet had actually recommended him to me. I think the match will be great because Rich Swann is great. You've got one guy from AEW, one guy from Impact, and then you've got Commander. I'm assuming, I never really asked him, but there are plans for him in the future, so I'm thinking he already signed. But he wasn't sure if he was going to stay, and WWE was talking to him, so we couldn't get him to commit. Explaining the contract status of former AEW champion Kenny Omega, it was said on Wrestling Observer Radio, okay, this stuff with Kenny Omega. Conan did an interview, and it got people thinking that Kenny Omega had signed a new contract. Kenny Omega is under contract with AEW. His contract was extended because he was out for, I think, 9 months due to injury. I believe that he is under contract until around November or December. There is no new deal that's been signed. With WWE announcing an upcoming show in Saudi, this was said by the Wrestling Observer about Sami Zayn potentially being on it. The May 27th show in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, which was at first named King and Queen of the Ring, has been changed to Night of Champions. That usually means all the champions defend. It's notable because Sami Zayn was previously banned from going to Saudi Arabia, and has later said he's not interested, and for several reasons, the obvious being the treatment of Zayn. Owens also hasn't been doing, and they were tag team champions. On his podcast, former WWE writer Freddie Prinze Jr. said that Seth Rollins walked out of the Raw after WrestleMania for cutting to commercial during his segment. They played a commercial during his intro, and then we could kind of hear him having a freak out on some production people. He was going, "Why is there a commercial?" You couldn't really hear what he was saying. You could just tell he was mad. He said, "What the hell is going on?" I saw that coming out of his mouth. I think he was more pissed than pissed at them. I think he was pissed when he was backstage at whoever did that, but if I was him, I would have been just as angry, and I thought the way he dealt with it was so hardcore and awesome. Instead of cutting a promo, he just throws the mic out of the ring and walked out of the freaking show. WRKD Wrestling then added, squashing any rumors, Seth Rollins currently has no plans to leave WWE. One of the driving points is the amount of time he gets to spend with his family while on the road, and he isn't looking to change that. Touching on the merger between WWE and UFC, Eric Bischoff said this on his 83 Weeks podcast. Will there be cost cuts? Of course there will, but there's a lot of duplication. This is a guess. I suspect that there will be more layoffs within UFC than there probably will be in WWE. I say that because WWE is a very sophisticated, mature business compared to UFC. WWE is probably as sophisticated as any other media company out there, including Disney and some of the other ones. I think there's going to be layoffs. I know there will be, but I think the majority of them are going to come on the UFC side as opposed to the WWE side. I'd be more concerned if I was working for UFC right now than if I was working for WWE. When it comes to possible plans for WWE to bring back a championship, Steve Carey of Ringside News wrote that we reached out to confirm rumors that WWE might bring back the 24/7 title. We were told that while it's not impossible, no plans have been mentioned to the creative yet. While he recently made his return to AEW on Dynamite this week, there is a health update for Jeff Hardy following his eye surgery, as Sean Ross Sapp noted. We're told that Jeff Hardy is still physically recovering from a recent surgery, and there are some alternate plans over the next few weeks that don't involve him wrestling. With a new Saturday show for AEW, it seems the company might be splitting their roster, with Fightful reporting that there's been a lot more traction within Warner Bros. Discovery about an impending announcement of a prime-time Saturday show being designed for a bit of a soft roster split to accommodate the preferences of talent who wanted to stay separate of the particular situations, though talent haven't been informed of that. Talent we've spoken to have heard the discussions about a new show, but haven't heard about Punk's possible impending return. According to Fightful, AEW is working on a return to action for CM Punk, with it said that CM Punk has expressed his willingness to return to AEW, and it seems like the pieces are being put into place for it to happen. Those that we've spoken to confirmed that CM Punk has been hoping to work with Kenny Omega and Young Bucks, but we've heard of no contact between the two sides. The last we'd heard, the Elite were not keen on the possibility of working with him. AEW sources indicated that Punk had been trying to push for a meeting between everyone for quite a while, but we haven't heard if any progress had been made. It's worth noting the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are in the middle of negotiating new contracts with AEW. Speaking of the possibility of the Elite working with CM Punk in the future, Brian Alvarez said on Wrestling Observer Radio, "I haven't heard a word about Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks wanting to work with CM Punk. If you watch the AEW All Access show, they're still upset about it." Matt Jackson said it was the worst 6 weeks of his life. There is no word that they want to wrestle CM Punk in FTR. I haven't heard a peep that they want to work with Punk. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.